Hello again. Today it's the weekend of 23rd of January, and I just thought I would give a bit of an overview of how I start analysing some of these charts at the weekend. So I'm just going to apply a template that I already have. Now this template basically is the default settings, but with the higher time frame set. With the bias set to the highest time frame and excluding historic zones from the bias filter. So I don't think anything else has changed beyond that. So here I just usually start at the monthly chart just to get a big picture of what's going on. So here we have the Aussie dollar. We can see that it's come down from this supply zone at the top, a little bit of a hiccup in the middle, and then come down. It's actually going right into this monthly demand zone at the moment. So don't know whether there's going to be too many opportunities to carry on selling at the moment. We could be even looking for a reversal at some stage. So we don't really know, but I will look down to small time frames just to see what's going on. Here we have the daily, the weekly. You can see it's created another supply zone as it's come down, but it's hit this longer term demand zone as well. And what's happened is it tried a few times, it's resisted, it's bounced off it again, but this time it's come underneath it and tried to go back above it, but actually hesitated at it and then it's been stuck below it. That to me is generally a sign that it probably isn't going to carry on above that now, it's going to head on down. So I'll go down to the daily time frame this time. This is an interesting one. We can see that there's all these supply zones around top up here. It's fallen down a lot recently. It's been a lot of downtrend, and then it's undergone this little retracement area going on here. Just out of interest, you can see that the daily is still on a downtrend here, although the H4 is showing an uptrend, which we'll see in a little while. So we're in a downtrend in the daily chart. It's created this pin bar here right at the TDL, which is the top of this long bear candle. So really it's a case of like what's going to happen now. So we've already established from the weekly chart that we're more interested in the downside. So it's really a case of if we want to trade this pair, then we want to look for good supply zones on the small time frame that we're going to enter short from. So like I said, it's made this pin bar. Often some people trade from pin bars, I don't. So best thing is to look down to small time frames really. And the H4 gives or the 4 hourly gives a interesting supply zone right above, which has been hit a couple of times and looks like it's holding prices steady. So I guess we could have we'd been here a little bit earlier, we might have looked to sell from this supply zone. Maybe we've missed the boat here. So we're maybe look at a small time frame and see what's going on. What we do also see though is this demand zone down here, which has been retested once. And then it's come way to this higher time frame. So I do wonder if this is actually going to support much more next time it visits. So let's look down at a small 1 hour time frame. I wouldn't go much lower than the say 30-minute, but we'll keep going down anyway. Here we see that it actually created a bit of a demand zone as it came up here, which got tested, moved away a bit further, tested again, moved away a bit further, tested, went into zone, tried to come back out of it but couldn't, and it's carrying on down through the zone. So again, this looks to me as if this zone has been broken or is about to be broken. So let's go down 30-minute. Again, we're in this zone now, so we're only really seeing demand zones here. So that's because the H4 trend is down. So it's hard to know really. There's not too much to do here at the moment. I think the best bet really, if we want to trade short, is maybe go back to this H4 zone and look at maybe putting another entry on that zone, just in case it comes back for another try at it, or alternatively just waiting for a little bit longer to see whether we start getting some 30-minute zones. I guess if we look at this 30-minute zone up here, which is right on the level around about 0.7025, that could possibly be a level to think about getting in at if we're looking at anything, but yeah, I'm not too sure about that, and personally I think I'd probably wait on this pair. Okay, I'll just take another look at the next pair, which is going to be the euro dollar. I'll apply my standard template. A second to refresh, and then we go straight to the monthly. Now the euro has clearly been in a downtrend for quite some time. It's been very weak recently, as most of the currencies. Did have a little bit of a recovery here this last month, but it's still looking very weak on the longer term. So we'll just drill down. Well, actually, before we drill down, we'll look further down. There's quite a way to go before the next monthly supply, demand zone, so we probably don't really need to worry about that at all at this stage. We just want to really look at what's going on in the smaller time frame zones. So I'll go next to the weekly. Load that up a little bit, and we see that here we have a supply zone formed. Came down, it came back and just retested that supply zone. It's left to downside, and it's per time it's actually created another supply zone just at the end of this week as it happens. So that's a good sign. We can probably see price falling from here. Maybe a little bit of retracement going on around about this bottom level of the supply zone. But yeah, I think we're looking to sell from there. So let's just drill down a little bit further. Interesting here, we've got this daily supply zone where price is touched, left quite a way, come back, touched, left, come back, left, come back, left, come back, come back. It's obviously a pretty important level, that, so I think we can say that there's a lot of people who don't want to buy anywhere near to that 1.094 level. So it looks like eventually the buyers actually gave up, at least for now, and price has fallen down and closed quite close to the bottom of this long wick here. So definitely a bearish sign there, but we're not too sure at the moment. So let's look on the small time frames. So this is interesting. We've got these 4-hour supply zones where prices come up and retest it before it dropped again, and here we had a 4-hour demand zone, and that to me looks like a good target for price to head towards at the moment before possibly getting some kind of retracement to the upside. We're really looking to sell, so it's a case of trying to find out the best area to sell short from. If you really want to do short-term intraday trading, then yep, this could be a good zone to sell from. If you're looking to hold on to it a little bit longer, then I'd probably wait and look for the sell opportunities rather than buy opportunities. Just going to drill down a little bit further to the 1 hour. Here you can see the 1 hour zone that was tested. A couple of zones, overlapping zones, or 3 overlapping zones as it happened. Got through the first one, just touched the second one there before it dropped away. Came down to this zone. It's actually quite a deep looking zone, so I don't tend to like these deep zones because they tend to be quite weak. Generally, I find the ones that are more than about 30 pips tend to be a little bit weak. There's been a lot of back and forwards around here, and it really doesn't look like this zone is going to give too much resistance. So I think we're looking down towards this next zone here, which is what I'm going to do is just quickly show the 4 hour zone by changing the display to show the higher time frame as well as the current one. Second to refresh. There we go. So there's the H4 zone that we saw originally. See, it's ending in 248. Just quickly flick back. You can see this one's ending in 248. So that's the same zone. So we come back to the H1. We can see this 1 hour is embedded in the H4 zone. So that's the target we're really looking for if we want to buy at all. Looking to sell. Let's just extend this a little bit higher so we can see it a little bit more clearly. This 4-hour zone is probably the good one to look at the moment. It's already come back to this H1 zone here. If it's on the downway, it may well come back to this 4-hour one before dropping away. So that's, if I was buying from further down, then that would probably be my target, or something close to that. There's lots of layers of 1-hour zones here, so I'm not quite sure where it might do. It may well come deeper into it and hit this last zone that hasn't really been tested since it came in here. It's a bit of a mess in there, to be honest. It's not the best or easiest or most obvious trade. At the moment, the best zone for trading is definitely on the buy side, lower down. But as I say, our profits are probably going to be limited, given that we're really looking to sell this pair at every opportunity rather than buy. I will look down to the 30-minute just to see what we can get from here. So we've got a couple of zones there, another one up there. This is the 1-hour zones. So yeah, it's not really that clear at the moment, so my tendency would be to wait and maybe just put in a short-term buy trade, but being very aware that it would be short-term and you'd probably be closing it after the first day or two of the week, maybe just a little bit of retracement before the downtrend continues. Okay, I'm just going to flip to the pound against the dollar, apply my template, give it a second to refresh. It's on the 1-hour chart, but I'm going to flip straight away to the monthly chart, and here we can see how there's been this monthly demand zone, which is prices being teasing quite a few times, coming back to it, leaving it, coming back to it, leaving it, but this time it's actually created another monthly zone, monthly supply zone quite close to it, and this is stopping price from getting away from this demand zone, and it finally seems like price might be pushing much deeper into this demand zone here. So we're looking at sales at the moment from that perspective, but we'll look down into the smaller time frames and see if we can see anything else going on. This pair has been very bearish over the last few weeks, as we can see. Candles getting bigger and bigger as it comes down, but this last week it threw in this pin bar showing a bit of rejection here. So just scroll the chart down, so there's not really a lot of support coming in at any stage. Go a little bit smaller. One thing I will do, it's useful to know, is if you just scroll to the bottom of this bar and see candles look back. Sometimes you need to increase this because it's at historic lows or somewhere it hasn't been for a long time, so I'm just going to make it go back a few more candles, or quite a lot more, just to make sure we're not missing anything on that respect. It takes a little bit longer to refresh the zones, which is why I tend to leave it at 1500, but occasionally you do need to update it just to make sure that you've looked back far enough in time. Here we go. Just scroll down, and here, having done that, we do actually see our daily zone. Just quickly flip back to the weekly, make sure there's still nothing there. So still nothing on the weekly front, but yes, that daily zone, there's a zone down there which we can probably look to target just by selling short. We're getting quite close to it, we're quite a long way down the curve, so we don't want to be too greedy. We want to look for the better pullbacks just to make sure we're maintaining our risk reward ratio. I'll come down to the H4 chart and start looking at where we may be looking to sell from. Interesting at the moment, we see there's a little bit of a rally going on here. It's gone past this high here, and it's looking like it's heading up towards this supply zone further up. Possibly it'll get beyond that, but that's certainly the first opportunity we'd be looking to sell from, just to continue this downward daily trend. Now I'm quickly just gonna see the higher time frame zones on that same chart as well. So parent and one higher time frame. Give it a moment to refresh. It's a lot of candles, so it'll take a little bit longer than normal, but hopefully not too long. There we go. So there's that daily zone. It's pretty thick at the moment. Just go down to the 1 hour chart. See a couple of demand zones further down where price has been going up towards that 4 hour supply zone further up. If I scroll down, we can just see it coming up here. So what we might expect is that price could possibly come down to this demand zone here before continuing up to this 4 hour zone further up. So if I was looking on the buy side, then I'd be looking to buy from this zone here in target of this 4 hour zone further up. There's the 4 hour zone. So just looking at quickly at the levels. Sometimes I put a line on chart just so it's obvious when I flip between charts. Here you can see that line. So this is the kind of level we're looking at coming back to, which incidentally you can see it just looking at where this wick here, where price broke past it. It's almost looking like it's coming back to what many people term support, resistance turned into support. So this is something where I'd be buying maybe before it takes up to this 4 hour zone, or alternatively maybe the safer trade, if you're prepared to be a bit more patient, is to wait for it to come up to the 4 hour zone and then sell it down to the daily zone. Either or, depends how many trades you want to do and how frequently you want to trade and how much patience you have. I'm actually quite interested in taking the buy up to the H4 zone because it does look to be doing quite a significant retracement, which then gives quite a good risk reward ratio. Just come down to the 1 hour time frame again. So this is the zone we're looking at. Let's go down to the 30-minute just to make sure we're not missing out on anything. You see we have got a 30-minute zone almost exactly the same level. This is a very small shallow zone, so if it does work, the potential risk reward is very, very good. So that's certainly something worth considering. If it were to fail, then I think clearly we'll be looking at this zone down here, which is quite nicely defined. It's a nice width. It's got the 1 hour zone just behind it, which we can see when we change the 1 hour zone. So yeah, this would be a good first bet though. You may want to give a couple, 2 or 3 pips, just spare the other side just to give a bit more depth to it, because it is very, very shallow, possibly even too shallow really. Okay, let's have a quick look at the Canadian dollar, the loonie. I actually shorted this one last week. You can see how much it fell towards the end of the week. But let's go to the monthly, because it's actually been on a much longer term, very strong uptrend over the last, well, numerous months. Dollar's being very strong against the Canadian dollar. The US dollar's been strong against it, that is. So I'm just going to quickly apply my template as before. And here you can see how far it's come from these monthly zones down here below. See this little monthly zone formed here, came back, tested it, and then wow. Imagine if you'd entered on that longer term time frame and just left it till now. You'd be doing very well. But you'd have a lot of patience to wait that long as well. So let's quickly pull the screen down, see if there's anything else we can see up there, and there we have the what could be considered the targets on the monthly time frame, but that's quite a large time frame, so we'll look down a little bit closer and you can see that reason why it just managed to hit a weekly supply zone, which is why we had that big fall right at the end of the week. It's actually quite amazing how these zones how price really reacts to these zones, especially these historic zones when it hits them. So really now we're looking for some kind of retracement. It's hard to know exactly how far it's going to go back. We could maybe look at a smaller zone time frame, and here's a nice little zone that could well be a good place to target getting in long game. Go a little bit further to fall, could take a day or two to get down to this level, but yes, I actually quite like the look of that one. It's not too deep, price has rallied very strongly out of it. It's got a good amount of retracement, and often I find that the zone which caused that retracement, in this case the weekly, you only really need to look down one time frame to find the best place to enter long. So the daily does seem like a good candidate. What it is worth doing though is just looking at the smaller time frames. You may want to take a trade early in the week as it comes down to this time frame, so you may want to look at places to get short just for the first day or two. Now we can see we've actually hit a couple of demand zones on the 4 hour, but I'm not going to worry too much about those because I think I'm really looking to see price come down lower than that at the moment, especially given how strong this fall in price has been over the last couple of days. So looking down again, well, there is quite a lot of support there, so maybe it won't get down to that daily, but for me the daily is the one to look out for. $30-minute, again we have these demand zones which may cause a little bit of probably consolidation early on the week. Maybe could vibrate between these for a little while, especially when trading is quiet on the Monday, maybe dropping down on the Tuesday. So here's, what I'm going to do is quickly put on the parent time frames, so it's easier to see. So here's that daily time frame zone, and here's the 4 hour right underneath it. So if we want to reduce our risk even more, we could target this H4 zone which is nested underneath the daily zone, or given that the daily zone is quite narrow anyway, we could maybe just use our map and order around that limit order to be ready to buy when it comes down to it. Again, could go even lower time frame. Put it down quite a bit. This is the one that we saw before, embedded in the daily, but there's not really any 1 hours or small time frames embedded within that. So yeah, I think the 4 hour is going to be the lowest risk opportunity, the daily being the alternative. Okay, so now I'm going to take a look quickly at the US dollar yen. So quickly go to the monthly chart. I already have my template applied to this one. You can see that the US dollar has been very strong against yen for quite a long time, but it's come into a fair bit of consolidation over the last 6 to 9 months or so. It's falling down a bit now, but it recovered a little bit at the end of the last part of this month, I should say. So we're not quite sure whether it's going to carry on that upward trend at some stage, or whether it's got a bit more retracement to come first. I suspect the latter is true, and I'm tending to look towards this gap down here as to extent of the retracement, but it's a bit hard to see how quickly that's going to happen. It could just be a slow ride down there. Don't really know at the moment. So we'll look on the weekly chart first now, and you can see the weekly supply and demand zones which are forming the range that this price is moving in for this pair. I thought at the end of last week that the range was going to break and it was going to head on down. I was actually short at this stage and had a decent profit, a lot of which got taken away. However, I did enter a long fairly quickly when I realised it was going the other way and made some good money back there. So the question now is, it's coming up to this monthly TDL, is it just going to hit the entry line on that weekly demand zone and then carry on down, or is it going to just resume the range again as it has done over many months gone by? My feeling is it's probably going to hit the entry line on that weekly demand and then fall down again, so that's something I'll certainly be looking out for. Look on the daily zone now, daily time frame now. You can see it's come out of this daily time frame. This is a historic one, it's been made quite a while ago. It's coming out, and here's the weekly demand zone that we were looking at before, which might be the point where it might hit and then return, having made a fairly good effort at breaking into that zone. Not too much more we can really see from that. I guess the decision now is, do we stick with the weekly or daily downtrend that we can see on this chart and just keep selling the rallies, or do we look to keep trading the range? And that's kind of a difficult decision to make at the moment. Really no clear idea. The only thing that to me in favour of going to the downtrend is that it looks like the monthly chart needs to have a little bit more of a retracement to the downside before price can carry on up. So I tend to favour looking for short positions at the moment. Let's go down to the 4-hour chart, and here we can see a couple of pretty good supply zones. This one in particular I quite like the look of. It's a historic zone compared to where the source was, so that's always a good thing. Just quickly flip back to the daily and we'll see what level this zone is at. It's at 119.30. So come back, and this is at 119.08. So it's just a little bit before really, whereas this one's a little bit after. So however, the top of that zone is quite high, so it could be a good place to look for a short, maybe a little bit into that zone to be exact. Maybe look down a little bit to a smaller time frame, it might give a slightly better idea of what's going on inside that zone. So here's the zone, we have a 1 hour zone just underneath, but I would probably look to go inside the H4 zone if anything, so maybe looking at this zone if we really want to fine tune it and go for the lowest risk opportunity. I think personally I would probably look at just using the 4 hour zone to enter a short position, because trying to guess how far it's going in is pretty difficult to call. I will just have a look at the 30-minute zone just out of interest. Again, it's not really adding any more information than we already have, so I'll just go back to the H4 just to get another look at it. So I guess you could say if it's going to go about 50% into that zone, then yeah, it could be worth looking at the 1 hour zone. So that would be at about 119.46. Come back to this zone, so just map that out. So that's going to be kind of around about top of this little spinning top candle here, so around about that kind of level there. So just over 50% into the zone. That probably actually looks a pretty good place to look for an entry. So yeah, I think that's probably my favourite point to going for a short on that 30-minute zone. One last look. Zone ID, there we go, 119.467. Okay, now should we take a quick look at in the yen, maybe have a quick look at the Kiwi. That's the last pair tonight. Click to monthly, bring up the template. can see with that template that we're in quite a strong downtrend at the moment. It's been stuttering a little bit at the bottom. It's actually created some fresh demand. This one closed a little bit higher. The price is still trying to come back down, but it's struggling, having created that demand. So there's a little bit of upward momentum developing there, but the original target, if I'd have been selling from here, would probably have been down to here, and then having broke past that level down towards this zone here. So in theory it's probably got a little bit further to go, and I would be looking to keep on selling it ultimately, a bit like the Aussie dollar really. Let's go down to the weekly. You can see there's a fair bit of congestion. You've got a demand and supply zone, and it's just resonating in between those areas, creating a new supply zone up higher. I often find that the most recently, well, in this scenario where we have two zones at the same time frame, one embedded in the other, then it's usually the most recent one which has the biggest influence on what's happening to price. So that probably says my tendency would be that it's actually going to come up towards this level first before it drops down anymore, and that could well be a good entry point up here. It's actually a very narrow zone as well, so I'll just quickly put the cursor on it. And it's roughly, it's only about 70-80 odd pips with that zone, so you can actually trade a weekly zone on itself at that. But let's have a look at the smaller time frames still anyway. I'm going to quickly add the higher time frame zones. Parent only, so that's the parent and one higher time frame. Let it refresh. Okay, let's quickly flip back. So it's 6819. So this is the very narrow zone that we were looking at before, and right in there we actually have a daily zone, so that's probably where we're looking for it to be heading. I would certainly think that's a good target, so that really means that we're looking to buy from where we are at the moment. So let's look down the small time frames and see what buying opportunities we have. Straight away on the 4-hour chart, I see this zone here, and this looks right for buying this pair. Maybe look, this one is at 0.6440. Let's go a little bit closer, and we also have a 1-hour zone right at that very same level, so that certainly looks like a pretty good point to aim for going long. Just quick down a little bit further. That's 6439, and this is the zone here. We also have a 30-minute zone, so if you really want to narrow your risk, then it may well be worth heading down for this 30-minute zone. That's 64267. So that'd give a pretty low risk opportunity with plenty of upside available to get some good risk reward. Okay, I think that's really all I'm going to cover in this session. Hopefully that's been helpful, and I'll speak to you again soon. Cheers.